Now we're going to pull out the instruments. We'll start with the speedometer. Which has 4 screws holding it on. They're in the 4 corners. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, just a little side note, it's easy to get the screws out. It's a little harder to get them back in these little tight spots. There are tools, I forget what they're called, but they're... I will grab one later.
Are those the same screws that fit for the ignition cluster?
You mean, they're similar. I think the links are different. As you can see, the ignition switch, these are the longer ones. And then this is for the instrument. You can see it's a little bit shorter. Same threads. They're called cheesehead screws, slotted cheesehead screws, because the top of them look like a circle of cheese. See how they got that cylindrical shape? The threads are 1032. The earlier cars, early post-war cars, Silver Dawns and R-types, Mark 6s, they're British standard, and I don't know the exact size on those. So they're very similar, but not quite the same. The reason we're taking the speedometer out is the odometer has quit working. And it's quite a piece of machinery. It's got roller bearings for the speedometer. I will partially disassemble it for you guys a little later. I won't fix it, but it's quite a piece of engineering, I think, and it's hard to get parts for them. It's getting harder and harder. Now, this one's got a speedometer cable attached to it, so it's harder to pull out. As you can see there, you got your trip odometer cable coming off. This big, huge thing, I don't know if you can see that, Steve, is your speedometer cable. Mm-hmm. You've got lots of little lights for your turn signals, high beams, and instrument lighting. I am just going to yank them out because I know where they go back in, but if you're unsure, it's good to label them. We can't turn anything on now, obviously, because the battery's disconnected, but they just pull right out. As you can see, this is this solid brass. This is old school stuff. Nowadays, it'd just be a little twist-in plastic thing that you throw away. But this has a bulb that screws in, and these bulbs, you can still get them no problem, but they're a strange size. So they look similar to others, but most of the ones nowadays have a bigger globe on them. And people want to put their higher wattage, and they want to put them in here to increase the instrument lighting, but they don't fit inside. They don't go in this little sleeve, because if you look at it, I'm going to screw this back in real quick. It is the same diameter as the sleeve. The sleeve pushes in. You get the globe any bigger, it's not going to go in. So that's problematic. But anyways, we'll get the rest of these out real quick.
How do you know the problem with the odometer is in the mechanism, not in the cable or something like that?
Well, if the speedometer works and the odometer doesn't, then it's in the mechanism. If the speedometer doesn't work, you won't know if the odometer doesn't, or oh, and then also on the trip odometer, if the reason you know it's this one doesn't change in mileage, but if this one does, then you know the cable's good too. If the speedometer works, first of all, you know the cable's good. This has 2 different mechanisms that work these 2 things, so they can break independently. The permanent total odometer and then the resettable one. And your resettable knob's way down here, which connects, as you can see down here. This thing you push in and it should reset. See the numbers turning there? And that is connected to the small cable, which has a thumb screw on it that you can take off.
So that small cable is just for reset.
Just for the trip odometer, as you can see right here.
Right.
See that turning? Okay, now we got it's got a huge ring on there for that speedometer. We got one more bulb here. There we go. And we'll unscrew that. It's normal right hand threads. Here we go. She's free. This thing's heavy. Hold that. Wow.
That is heavy.
It's made of metal. It's solid. And if you look at the speedometer cable, that thing is huge. And there is a little trick. If you got a speedometer that kind of wiggles at certain speeds, sometimes you can play with the cable. It's a big old brass housing, and you can change how tight it is by twisting it one way or the other. If you twist the outer part of the cable housing, so sometimes you can play with that and tighten it up and see if it helps your wiggle. More often than not, it's in the speedometer, but that's what you can do to try. All right.